This is an ABP Live Podcast.
And this is a brand new episode of Cracking Conversation. Joining me today in Cracking Conversation is somebody who will give us a lot of insights about Delhi and all over India's air quality index. It is something जिसके बारे में हम जैसी ठंडी आती है ज़्यादा बात करना चालू कर देते हैं. I live in Delhi. I work out of Noida and I know that a lot of my colleagues are just talking कि भाई ये हवा को क्या हो जाता है बस 2-4 दिनों में इतना कोहरा इतना एयर क्वालिटी इंडेक्स खराब है. So joining me today in Cracking Conversation is retired Col Ashwini K Channan. He is the Indian CEO of AirVoice. Welcome to ABP Live Podcast.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to join your podcast, and I must admit that this is my first podcast recording.
Super.
I have listened to a few podcasts often then.
Okay.
But what I find now is the challenge of how do I carve out time from what I do as my working life.
Okay.
I love reading, so when do I get to read?
Okay.
And also some of the competing things that when your wife demands that you keep watching television,
True.
also watch some television with her.
Okay.
And so it's interesting that I'm today with you.
Agreed.
In a medium that I used to earlier listen on.
There is a lot of pressure on me not to like ruin this experience for you.
Thank you.
Firstly, let's talk about AirVoice. What exactly is AirVoice? I know you guys are working in the space of air quality, in improving the air quality, and especially. And I was reading this report sometime back that if you talk about the top 10 cities in the world which has the worst air quality, उसमें से इंडिया में ही 3-4-5 मिल जाएंगे. So since it's a primarily industrial belt which faces air quality index, like a poor air quality index, why do Delhi every time sees this ruined air quality around winters, and what exactly AirVoice does? That will be my first question. Pretty long, but
Sure.
you can elaborate as much as you want.
So Aabir, firstly, AirVoice, really speaking, air barely has any voice.
True.
But it has a lot of challenges.
True.
And since we are domain knowledge, our domain focus is on the quality of air, we want to give voice to the challenges that citizens face across the globe. You're right that amongst the most polluted centers, India figures prominently. It's something that we're not proud of. And the northern region of India, where Delhi is, though I suspect, as per the media reports which I was reading today, the city which was the most polluted yesterday was a small, quaint little city called Hanumangarh in Rajasthan.
Acha.
And I have been to Rajasthan, Hanumangarh. I have crossed it in my military days, and I cannot imagine that city in that wilderness was the most polluted city. And the second city is barely 175 kilometers from Delhi. It's Hisar.
Oh,
And again, when you tend to associate cities which are open and not compact urban settings like Delhi is.
No high rises, no big industries.
Not so much of traffic.
True.
But for other reasons, they were more polluted in terms of what you just mentioned, the AQI index readings. Their readings were higher than even Delhi.
But why do you think like these two cities topped the list or topped the chart and scored more than Delhi, which is considered to be the most polluted cities?
I know. This is something that Delhi would be very happy that not only Hanumangarh and like Hisar, some people may be hearing the Hanumangarh as a city for the first time. But the other city which has really been nudging around or biting on the tails of Delhi is Mumbai. And when you look
Kanpur, Lucknow.
they're in the interior, but can you imagine a city which is on the coast, which has coastal breeze coming in and which is supposed to wash away all that?
Agreed.
That has faced challenges. So I would not go by the daily readings that tend to put, let's say, a Hanumangarh at number 1 or Hisar at number 2. On a particular day, they have had a bad day. But if you look across on a number of bad days, then Delhi
It tops the list.
Does top the list.
I was talking about this report which I read around a year and a half before. They said that Kanpur is the most polluted city in terms of air quality. Then there is Lucknow, there is Delhi, there are a lot of other cities as well. But yeah, shocking part is Mumbai because it is on the coast. You don't expect that to happen.
You don't expect that to happen. And Kanpur, you mentioned and Delhi also for different reasons. Kanpur has a large industry
belt.
Part of it.
Right.
And managing the industry is part of the responsibilities that the government is looking into it with a sharp focus. Delhi has, and here in terms of Delhi, we tend to, like you mentioned, we're just getting into the season of bad air quality, and a lot of we tend to blame a lot of our neighboring states for all the agri waste that they burn.
Parali as they call it.
Parali as they call it, yeah. And particularly why not the year round? Because there are 4 crops in a year, but this is because of the rice paddy crop.
Right.
And the paddy crop, when it is cut, it is not very good for either the animals. It's got a high silicon content.
Okay.
And then because of the water policy of the states, in which the period between the harvest of the paddy crop and the sowing of the wheat crop, the time is so less that the farmers take the easiest route out for themselves.
Okay.
They use a matchstick. So the whole effort of a lot of people in this domain, and not just the companies which are involved, you have the CII, which is leading the Confederation of Indian Industries, you have the state governments, you have the central government, all of are trying to address this issue by trying to educate the farmer and by increasing his awareness levels. So for different reasons, like I told you, Kanpur is for industry.
Right.
And when we're looking at burning of, you have the agri-produce which aggravates the situation in Delhi.
Right.
But aside from that, the biomass that is burnt, especially as you come towards the winter months, part of it is that when people are feeling cold and you have a lot of people putting on small fires because Angithi, yeah, or they'll just collect anything because security guards or people who are exposed outside, they will light these because they need to keep themselves warm.
Right.
So you have a lot of biomass burning. Then you have a lot of landfills which have biomass, and there's a tendency to burn that biomass. And you have so it is the people who live around in colonies, in the housing societies around that, they get particularly impacted by it. Another weather phenomena that happens during the month is a temperature inversion, in which the air stands still.
It becomes dense, right?
Yeah, and so therefore there is no breeze. So what gets trapped here in the city is the pollution that has found, like I mentioned, Bombay, there is a coastal layer, so there are no wind conditions.
Delhi is primarily landlocked.
It is. So for these varying different reasons, it can be vehicular traffic, and it can be the fact there is an agri waste. It is because of the climatic condition. There's a temperature inversion. That you have all these reasons happening.
How much does real estate construction and all like the new concrete in the air?
Construction dust is a factor, and the Delhi government has worked at identifying what we call hotspots.
Okay.
And you would have heard of, or you would have read also, that the Delhi government has the graded action plan that depending on the quality of AI, they have set piece. They have a model that if this happens, they will stop this use of generators, and then they'll stop construction.
Right.
And I was interestingly attending a meeting, and when you look at stopping of construction, let me give you an idea how it impacts not just the person who's having a building coming up, or a real estate person who's building up the society. Look at that daily wager, that labor, who depends on his daily earnings. When you have this bad environment, bad air quality, and construction has been banned till the AQI reduces itself to a level that it is started again, that person has no job. He has nothing to eat. So there is a great societal impact which is beyond just the health implications for citizens like us. It is impacting the livelihood of even the daily wages. And the other part, you see, so what we offer in terms of from our technology point of view is we do a lot. When you look at the ambient source, we try and help the authorities and understand the source apportionment as to why has the spike happened. So you have sensors deployed all over the city. Number of people have that. We in AirVoice are very agnostic to just having, everyone tends to have their own sensors, but our software platform tends to involve all the sensors that are already deployed. It can be from different departments of the government. It can be by private parties, various academic institutes which have their own sensors.
Okay.
But what we can do is that we can integrate them into one platform so that you get a wholesome, holistic picture
Okay.
of what really is the air quality.
Okay.
And with that, you're able to do a source apportionment as to why has this spike happened. Has it happened because there has been a splurge of vehicular traffic, or is it, in the percentage of the apportionment that you're doing, this much is coming from vehicular traffic, this is coming from construction, this is coming from because of biomass burning.
Okay.
And coming back to that question of agri-waste burning, which I spoke to you just a while ago. Interestingly, what I read, there has been a lot of effort, like I said, in educating the farmer.
Right.
And in October, they recorded some 400 odd fires
Incidents
in Punjab, Haryana, and the other states around. This morning, it has gone up to 2,000.
Oh man.
So you can imagine at the huge quantum of challenge that you
It
face.
takes around 1.5 days from there to here.
For depending on the weather conditions, if it's a windy day, and we're going to be coming in when the what you call as western disturbances will come,
Alright.
and these western disturbances are the ones that bring in rain and snowfall to the mountains, and then they come towards Delhi as rain. So when that the wind and winds primarily coming in from the western side will push in.
So you're saying that it's going to be worse in next 2-3 days.
Everybody,
Since it has risen from 400 to 2000, it's going to be 5-fold.
So next week is Diwali, and everybody thinks, Diwali time is going to be bad. And of course, there is the piece of firecrackers. And on the firecracker piece, one thing that I felt, these days the children don't insist on buying firecrackers.
Right.
Because there's been a huge successful campaigns run in schools by
Right,
these people,
right. Agreed.
educating the children. So if they're not creating that demand in any house that we don't want firecrackers, so the incidence of firecrackers
Has pretty much reduced.
But even then, whatever that still go up, in spite of the ban, in spite of the fact that after 10 o'clock you can't have certain noise. The day after Diwali is always something that all citizens of Delhi dread. But can we say that is it just Diwali?
It is not
really. Like I mentioned, we are at a 400 plus AQI status today. Next week when Diwali happens,
It will be 900.
And then it goes across all parameters when you just can't record beyond that.
Yeah. I remember this, there's this like government website which gives you the air quality index.
Yeah.
60 or 80 is the normal rating. It is any day around 150, 200.
You cross all
Diwalis, it crosses 900, and I guess the 999 is the maximum limit. It crosses that, and then they say ki bas ho gaya.
Yeah, your instruments just can't measure beyond that. And so what happens is, after that, yes, the quality will come down, but does it become good? No. It's still bad.
Yeah, those matters are primarily in the air, right?
Yeah.
They just don't vanish. They will always be there.
Yeah. So that's the part that we spoke about, how we tend to work with authorities as a technology company, because what we realized is that, and you don't work alone, you work with everybody who's in this business, and all of us are stakeholders, and all of us bring different levels of your domain knowledge and expertise. So what we really look at is trying to help in the source apportionment, but by reading of data.
Okay.
And then also, if you look at what I've also mentioned in that space is the industrial areas, because we spoke of Kanpur. So like this, you have industries spread all over the country.
Okay.
And industrial areas, by the reasons because they're manufacturing, they have emission sources.
Okay.
And now there is a mandate that these industries which are big, they have to provide a live feed of the emissions that are emanating from their manufacturing or production sites, which goes to the State Pollution Control Board, and the state, when they get the data, if it crosses a certain threshold, then the State Pollution Board gives a warning to that industry that you have crossed that, and now you need to, in the next 24 hours or so, take a remedial action. So as we work, we tend to work, like I mentioned, on mathematical modeling, is that we tell the industry through our software program, and we call that, one of our solutions is called the Ploom solution, that there is a certain amount of pollution or emission they are doing, but are they solely responsible for it because they are within a certain campus?
Sure.
and the area problem could be because of the other industries as
Agreed.
well. So we're able to tell the industry with whom we are working with that this probably happened because of the emissions which are your in-house, and the overall reasons is not just because of yours, because of the others as well.
Okay.
And then what happens to the population that is living in those areas, in these industrial areas, the towns and villages, the pollution goes to them. Which, like I mentioned, is a matter of weather phenomena. Breeze will, the stronger the wind, the further the pollution will travel.
Okay.
So we have something called a Ploom Model in which we are able to give to a reasonable level of accuracy from 72 hours to 24 hours before the incident can happen.
Okay.
We're able to give a projected impact of how the emission will impact to the local area.
Okay.
Now, in terms of industry, instead of waiting for a signal from the State Pollution Control Board that you have crossed certain thresholds, the industry gets to know 24 hours, which is with 99% accuracy. Why I'm saying 99%? Because the predictions that we did, we thereafter evaluated those predictions with the actual outcomes, and the accuracy level was...
There must be an algorithm in place as well.
Yes, because it's mathematically based, yeah.
True.
And so with that, so we are able to give the industry in advance a warning that because of the weather phenomena, and we use a lot of data. It's basically mathematical modeling comes in, you get a NASA picture, you get from the Indian Meteorological Department.
Okay.
But then they are covering wide areas. And so it is with the mathematical modeling you're able to bring in the hyperlocality of being able to say, okay, within your campus and in the areas around, this is the impact of how it can be. So we are able to give a warning of 24 hours.
That makes sense.
So that makes sense for the industry, so they can take measures in their
to control it before getting penalized or before getting to stop the production.
That's the last step, the penalty part. The penalty. More of it is because they are very much aware of the fact that, and the industry also has a lot of concerns because their employees also live in that area.
Agreed. I was talking to this gentleman who runs like a steel Saria company. He has a production unit. And he said that you can't even imagine what is the AQI there. For a normal day, very normal day, it's anywhere more than 450. Yeah. And I was shocked to listen, how the hell do you guys live there? That is the challenge of that industry. Steel is one of the most air polluting industries.
So the process of the manufacturing, probably, there are a lot of
fumes,
technologies that are coming in, helping in the cleaner manufacturing processes, but there's a lead time when the technology is discovered, adopted by bigger companies. There is an MSME segment. There are smaller people who will not be able to provide that sort of investment immediately into such technology. So there will be a time, but yes, creating the awareness within the industry that they can address the problem and they can mitigate some of the challenges that because of their manufacturing it occurs to the local population. There's a piece that we can do there.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, we've spoken about the ambient air, and I think as much I would like to speak about indoor air, and the reason I want to speak is we spend almost 90%, globally the figure is 80% of our times in indoor environment. For India the figure is 90%.
Acha.
And the other interesting
data, 90% indoor.
So you are
in your house. Is also considered indoor.
Yeah, you're in your house, you get into your car which is indoor, you get into your office, you work in a hospital, you work in a big building, you work in even in a mall, you're inside a...
True. You're inside. It's an indoor environment.
So indoor environment we spent almost 90%, and the challenges that occur in an indoor environment, and especially again we are coming to Diwali, and during Diwali a lot of people get their houses redone, repainted. So there is something that some people would be aware of. It's called VOC.
VOC.
Volatile compounds.
Okay.
Volatile organic compounds is the whole word, and these are the ones that you find in your paint.
Oh, right.
So when you have a fresh coat of paint, you find it very difficult to be in that room.
Agreed.
Because
you can't bear that.
You feel that you
a lot of fumes.
So these days you get actually low quality VOC paints as well, which will mitigate to a large extent these problems. And then besides this, all of us are very religious. We light incense sticks. We have dhoop and battis in the house. They also create an indoor
अच्छा
challenge.
यार मैं तो सुबह सुबह लगा देता हूँ कि बहुत बढ़िया एयर प्योरीफाई हो रहा है, लोबान जला दो, संब्रानी जला दो.
And not only that, we take deos and we spray them on ourselves.
अच्छा.
They're also a source of indoor air quality pollution. Besides the kitchen being what it is, that because of the cooking that happens, and you have of course chimneys in the kitchen, and which tends to suck out that air. But I'm just giving you the reason that we spend 90% of the time in our lives inside, and statistically, globally, there is data that the quality of air inside in the indoor environment can be 5 times worse to the outside environment in some cases.
Are you kidding me?
So don't say that when you get inside the house, you're going to feel, okay, I'm in the house now, I'm safe. Different challenges, different parameters,
Agreed.
but still a challenge.
Achha, so my fundamental question, what I was thinking all this while you were saying is, what is the primary like the product of AirVoice? Is it a consultancy, like a data consultancy? Is it like a physical product which you install a sensor or something like that?
Yeah, so I'll come to that. So we have sensors.
Okay.
We have sensors which we also call as the ambient sensors, because the challenges which are in the ambient space are different.
And these are public sensors, like
so
these
can be deployed outside.
Okay.
And so we deploy those, and typically so there is something in these sensors which are reference grade sensors. Ours are not, and they're very, very expensive.
Okay.
So we have something which is not a reference grade sensor, but these sensors are fairly accurate in giving the data that we have. So AirVoice has its own sensors, but like I mentioned to you earlier, in the software dashboard that we have, we are agnostic to being these sensors being our own. It can be anyone's sensor. All we want from them is that the sensors that others have deployed are accurate. And this is where the quality of sensors come in. If you were to go onto Amazon, you would get some very cheap sensors.
You do have air quality sensors there, okay.
Yeah, so you would get sensor, but the quality of the sensor is not necessarily linked to how high it costs.
Okay.
And so there's a different, but you do get to know in the industry that which sensors, for its cost, how accurate they are.
Agreed.
So you depend on the accuracy of these sensors. So AirVoice does have its sensors in the ambient space.
Okay.
Then we have a very small miniaturized sensor that we call as the Magic Air for the indoor air.
Magic Air.
We call it as Magic Air. Now, why I'm saying indoor air? Because indoor air is a limited volume of air in which you can influence in cleaning it. When we spoke of ambient air, we spoke about telling the authorities the source part of it, so that the authorities or the industry could look at controlling that source and thereby improving the quality of air.
Agreed.
But inside an indoor environment, the air inside is something that you can control. If you're living in your house, or if you're in an office environment, you have HVAC systems, and so there we have, because you can control it, so a sensor gives the data there.
Okay.
So you asked what else does AirVoice do? We deal with the sensor part of it.
Okay.
We deal with the software that reads those data, crunches it, reads it, makes it meaningful, does the visualization, and is able to then, based on the data, you're able to generate some recommendations.
Okay.
So,
and that consultancy part is also
it's also there. So we provide that as a service. We can be in an indoor, let's say your office here, we have our sensors deployed here, and we are monitoring them on a real-time basis.
Wow.
So,
and how big is the sensor? Like, can I keep it inside my home?
It's probably this phone size.
Oh, Aabir.
This phone size, and
that's it.
That's it.
So and these are smart sensors, like it is connected to Wi-Fi and everything.
Yeah, and it's connected on the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's connected on Wi-Fi, and therefore we gather all the data onto our dashboard.
Agreed.
And based on the reading, we're able to pinpoint, okay, this is where you have a problem.
Okay.
This is where your PM 2.5 level has gone up. And a very interesting thing I must tell you, probably, when we sit in a conference room like we are sitting here in the studio, and when you walked in, it was all nice and fresh. But after you spend about an hour, it tends to get there's a word called stuffy.
Right.
And what you do is you open the door, you open the windows, ki bahar se hawa aane. What really happens as human beings, we respirate.
Right.
We breathe in oxygen and we breathe out
carbon dioxide.
So what happens when the level of carbon dioxide inside a room goes up?
You feel nauseous.
It causes you to lose your cognitive ability, so it makes us lazy. It makes us irritable. So in a conference which goes beyond 2 hours, you will find people losing attention to the slides that are being projected.
True.
The discussions becoming more heated because CO2 starts impacting it.
So it is not just because of your bullshit explanation on PowerPoint presentations. It is certainly because of the more carbon dioxide.
So if you're able to manage the carbon dioxide content and you retain it at the right levels, incidentally, the carbon dioxide level in the ambient space is the best, around 350 ppm to up to 600.
Not inside the room.
Not inside. Inside, if it goes beyond 600 or even 700,
you'll feel
that's when it starts impacting you.
Okay.
And let me share something with you. It's a little digressing off, but since we were talking, we were on a flight and we had our air sensor with us, and we were discussing its use, and suddenly me and our team decided, why don't we measure the air quality inside the flight.
True, makes sense.
And so since the size of the sensor is so small, nobody really notices it. We were holding it in our hands, and in terms of particulate matter, it was excellent. Of course, the air management within the aircraft is superb. It was unbelievable. PM particulate matter was almost virtually not there.
Okay, like 20, 30?
Even lesser. It was
even lesser. So clean.
This micrograms is the way that you measure it. It was negligible. But in terms of carbon dioxide, when the flight started, it was nice. But as the aircraft took off, and it's a 2-hour flight, it went much beyond the levels that you and I spoke of. We spoke of 600 up to 700 when you start getting those first signs of irritation. But it went almost beyond 1,000. Now, for a short hop journey of 2 hours on a narrow-bodied aircraft, it's fine. But can you imagine if you're on a
flight to Chicago,
New York, Chicago, 18-hour flight, wide-bodied aircraft? So we did speak with some companies, including the company that I worked in, Honeywell. They do a lot. They manage. They have something called the environmental control solutions.
Okay.
And we spoke of this aspect as well. That when you're managing air quality, even when you're looking at air flight, even think of flights.
True.
Think of your long distance flights and think about what I just mentioned, the carbon dioxide content going up.
Yep.
And amongst the many challenges that we human beings are facing, even this can be a part of it.
True.
So coming back to what we said as a solution with an AirVoice, we have two machines which we call as air handlers. And that is why I use the term air handlers, because it is not an air purifier, as I was trying to explain to you, which primarily cleans the air of its particulate matter. Most of the air purifiers do that. And an air handler, what we do is we pull ambient air from outside.
Okay.
Because that has got the right amount of carbon dioxide level.
Okay.
And we clean, of course, when you're pulling in the ambient air, it's not very good air outside.
True.
It may be good in terms of carbon dioxide, but it may be heavy in terms of particulate matter. So through various filters we have in our air handler, it cleans it to the safest level possible. We have HEPA 13 filters. HEPA 13 filters, it will not only remove particulate matter much beyond 2.5 and below, it even stops microorganisms including viruses.
Okay.
And then when you pull that, and then we have filters which clean it of gaseous content, your NOxes, your hydrogen sulfide, your smells because of that.
Okay.
So what you are pulling in from outside is really outdoor air which has been cleaned off.
Okay.
All these elements, and this comes in. And when it comes in, because of the positive air pressure it creates within the room, it displaces that air which had heavier carbon dioxide. And it makes the environment inside better. So the two products that we have, we call them Breezer, not to be mistaken for...
Wow, that's an interesting name.
That's an alcoholic drink. But Breezer because it's breeze, and so therefore Breezer.
Certainly yes.
And so we have,
and cold breeze gives you a high. So yeah, certainly.
And a lot of people speak about, अच्छा ये Breezer इस room में handle कर लेगा. So like I mentioned, it's the number of people in a room that determines the level of, if there are more people in the room, more breathing out carbon dioxide, so the challenge is different. So Our model that we have 2 models in India. One handles up to 5 people in a room.
Okay.
We are not looking at large spaces. And there is a smaller model which we call as a light freezer, which can handle up to 2 people. So you have a bedroom, you have a light freezer. You
just
make sure that
there.
your sleep quality is going to be superb because all the levels in the air is really clean.
Okay.
And your larger spaces that you have, your sitting rooms and dining rooms or common family areas, you can install the breezer.
That makes sense. What if somebody says कि यार मेरे यहाँ तो बहुत अच्छी हवा पास होती है, I have cross ventilation across my home?
Ventilation is good, yes, because if ventilation is there, then the carbon dioxide is being displaced.
Agreed.
But how many of us open up windows during winters? Because you are not sure of the quality of air outside.
Outside,
you
true.
tend to keep the windows closed.
Right.
You tend to keep the windows closed because of dust, not just the air quality, because of the noise that happens. Now, if you kept your indoor environment secure by not opening any window, but you had a machine which was bringing in that fresh air from outside. I'm using the word fresh air, ambient air from outside, cleaning it and making it refreshing for you inside the
Only God knows whether it's fresh or not, but it's at least ambient air.
We are making, and you know what happens? Our sensor works along with this air handler.
Okay.
And it sort of measures, okay, now I need to pull in the carbon dioxide level, and this is a threshold that you can set yourself in the mobile app that we have on the sensor, that you can say, okay, if the carbon dioxide threshold for me, I wanted 600 or 650 or 700. So the moment the carbon dioxide level goes that, the breezer, the magic air will tell the breezer, pull in air from outside.
Okay.
And when the inside in the environment has the right amount of carbon dioxide, it stops pulling air from outside.
Okay. It will just circulate the air inside.
It will only recirculate. And when it has cleaned it off the particulate matter as well, the magic air will tell the breezer to stop. So here comes in the aspect of energy efficiency.
Okay.
Here comes something that we all, right now we have air purifiers and we switch it on. The moment we see it coming near the green color, we want to switch it off. So there is a sense that you have, there's electricity consumption going on with this machine. But if you had these products of ours, they can be on. But the machine will switch on only when it is needed, based on the parameters which are being monitored real time.
Makes sense. That makes sense. But towards the end of this podcast, I would love to know you're an expert in this field. What all should one do? If not just buy an air purifier, like normal regular stuff, to breathe fresh air and just to keep ourselves sane.
I think the first thing is awareness. A lot of us tend to think that it's a subject matter which only the authorities can deal with and I have no responsibility. We all have responsibilities. Besides the health impact within your family, and I'm saying that please don't be concerned because you have young children at home. In fact, since I'm mentioning the word children, even fetal development stage for a child in the mother's womb is impacted by the air quality inside the house. So even before the child is born and in the initial days after the child is born, his immune system is still under development, very vulnerable at that stage. Then we're looking at the elderly, because now they become elderly, they have vulnerabilities because of their old age. So they are vulnerable, and so people tend to look at buying the air quality management either because they're young children or because of this
old age.
But you could have chronic problems yourself, and you in the space between children and the elders are the ones who are working. And imagine if an air quality, because of various issues, it causes you respiratory issues, asthma issues, and you don't go to work. That's loss of productivity. That's forcing you to be at home when you could have been working in office, forcing you to take medical leave or other leaves where you would have rather preferred to have gone out on a holiday with that leave that you
That makes sense.
So the awareness part is that please understand that within your houses, you have a responsibility there. In your office space, you have a responsibility if you're not getting the quality to work with your management and say, okay, look, improve the air quality for me because like I mentioned on the carbon dioxide aspect, my productivity will remain good. If you're not just maintaining the temperature at 23 to 25 degrees, which is seems to be the focus area of most offices in the HVAC system, is managing the comfort level.
Agreed.
But you also need to make sure that the air quality level is good because it makes you most productive.
Agreed. That makes sense.
So there's an awareness there. And then our little piece that we have in the ambient space, we also contribute to the bad air outside by various things. We burn biomass. We are not careful of whatever, on the use of your vehicles. If you can walk to the market, why don't you walk to why do you need to switch on your car?
Sure.
So in small ways, each of us can contribute. Let's not just look at the authorities. Let's look within ourselves.
That makes
Let's
sense.
become aware. Let's understand our responsibility as a citizen of Delhi or Kanpur or Hanumangarh or Hisar, all those names that we took. We all have a responsibility for that.
On that note, I guess that was a wonderful conversation, cracking conversation with Colonel Ashwini Channan, retired Colonel Ashwini Channan. Thank you for having this conversation and sharing your insights. I really hope that we get to deal and breathe a lot of fresh air, and I'll end this episode with a long, deep breath. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.